Hey, welcome to the Church Explained podcast, a conversation to grow your leadership and build your church. Today we are back with Peter Wan, who was with us on the last episode. He shared some of his story, and today you're going to hear some of the church scene in Taiwan and what he's doing there. We hope you enjoy the show.
I wonder if we'd dive a little bit into your church, Peter, and I know you chatted with Dave offline and talked about having a young team and a young church. I wondered if you'd just kind of paint the picture for us, what that looks like, maybe also speaking into, having that young church, that young team, the opportunities with that, but also the challenges with that as well.
Okay. Well, our church is young in both that we're only 3 years old, but also the people that made up the church, that makes up the church, and the majority of the people in our church are single and available and ready to mingle. So we're always trying to get them to,
Hey, wait,
Is this an advert?
Yeah.
Is this an advert right now?
We're making a dating app off
Yeah,
this.
this is an advert.
Yeah, so we would do these events called Date My Mate, right? So where we would encourage them to bring a mate, like an opposite sex, a friend from the church that they're not interested in, but they think somebody else might be interested in. And so we do all these different things to get them, get them connected. But I think, and so it's a young church. Now, obviously, there's still older folks, and we try to serve them well too. But the majority are younger. So one of the things is that we have great volunteers because they have a lot of time. They don't, they don't have to rush home to take care of the kids. So we just have such an incredible group of volunteers. But at the same time, so many of them are so young in their faith. A lot of them are first time, this would be like the first ever church experience. And so that's good and bad. The good thing is, it's their first church experience. They haven't been burned by, previous church experiences, and they're, eager to serve. But then at the same time, you got to really disciple them, make sure they're not just here for the excitement. They're not just here for the, for the atmosphere. They're not just here for the social connections, but they're here because of the gospel of Jesus and what it means to follow God. And and even my team, like my staff team, most of them are very young. A lot of them are first generation Christians. Some of them have only been Christians for a couple of years. The lady that helped build our entire creative ministry, she was a flight attendant for 11 years before joining us on staff to build our communications and all these things that we do. The guy who helped me build the guest experience, he was a graphic designer for many years, and now he built the guest experience. Now he's building the children ministry for us. Another girl who helped build our church life, our small group system, our belong groups. She was a assistant to the editor of Elle magazine in Taiwan for many years. So that was her previous job experience. So we're working with people who have really no experience working in church. Many of them didn't even grow up in the church. So that's wonderful, right? Because then you can really do just first principle thinking. Like, if this is the task, if this is what we want to, if this is the problem we want to solve, how do we come with a solution? So you don't have all these baggages and it has to be like this, it has to be like that. We can just tackle the problem and just try to solve it and come up with creative ways to make things happen. But at the same time, that's also a challenge because not everything that works is biblical. Not everything that works is of the heart of God, right? And so you gotta be able to process all these with them and like, okay, well, that works, but that's not exactly the way to do it. That could build the church, but it wouldn't be a healthy church. Or that could do this, but it would help us grow fast, but it wouldn't help us go long. And so these are the conversations that we have. But one of the amazing thing is that the most rewarding thing is that the team right now, even though they're young, now they're having conversations with me about how do we grow a healthy church? How do we make sure people are discipled? And I just love that, because 3-4 years ago, these were people I was just discipling, starting out in the faith. Now they're having conversations with me about, man, we got to go deeper. We got to, we can't just be about this. We have to be more about going deep with God and helping people. So that has been an absolutely rewarding journey just to see them grow. Yeah.
So some of the challenges you mentioned there was some of the innovative ideas that could work in other settings, but not necessarily in church.
Yeah.
That's an interesting place to be, isn't it? For many churches, normally the other way around.
It's the opposite,
really.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes, because people, because when you grow up in a church where you spend so much time in church, you just automatically go to, if you want to do this, you have to do that. But really, like, there are many other ways to go about it. And, so I think, so that was one of the opportunities, but also the challenges that having a young staff team, having a young leadership team provides.
Brilliant. So, Peter, I know you've mentioned previously, even on this podcast, that the church is relatively new. It's a church plant over the last few years, and obviously we're coming out of a lockdown, many countries, all the pandemic stuff. I think people are breathing again. We're at the other side of it. But tell us a little bit for you then, what was that like, planting the church, getting it going in the midst of the lockdown? What were the challenges and opportunities in that?
Yeah, well, I'm so thankful that when we started the church, we did not know a pandemic was coming, because if I did, I don't think I would have funded the church.
Definitely.
No, yeah.
Because of all the challenges that it comes with. But looking back, I think the pandemic actually helped us grow, and I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. So we started church in 2019. Right? So this is 1 year before the pandemic. So the good thing is we have 1 year to get it started before things went into lockdown and all that kind of stuff. And so the church was growing, that 1 year. When you first started the church, you're just thinking, how do I get people in the doors, right? How do I make sure they come on Sundays? Like, if we're being honest, like, you're not really thinking that far down. You're just like, how do I get more people in on Sundays? You're not really thinking about all these different ministries or the long term whatever. And so that was kind of like the first year for us. And then the pandemic started, and so we thought, oh my goodness, people can't come anymore, and we couldn't do service anymore. So what do we do? So that's when we started doing online church. So now, before that, we didn't really have a real online presence at all. We kind of like I said, like, you're just trying to get people in on Sundays. We didn't really want to put anything online so people can just watch at home, because we want them to come. But that kind of changed everything. So we had to put things online. And so my team and I, we gathered together one afternoon, and we're just talking. We said, okay, if everybody's at home, what can we do to reach them? Besides just putting our sermons online, because we can do that, but everybody's doing that, and there's so many options out there. And by the way, people are probably watching Netflix and not watching our sermons. So what do we do? So we just start brainstorming, and we came up with this idea of a YouTube show called Asking for a Friend. So we said, hey, how about let's just do a YouTube show where I'm sitting there with a couple other pastors, and people can ask us questions about, just any questions, but they're asking for a friend, right? It's not like, so they ask us anything from like pornography, masturbation, everything. I don't know if I can say that well on your podcast.
Oh, you've said it. It's said it. It's in there.
If you want to, but and so we just started making all these. So we would answer questions about faith and sex and all these different things, money, and just the real questions that people have, but they're afraid to ask. So and so we start recording these, and we put them on YouTube, and that just went viral. Like, there is somewhere out there a video with, like, I think 150,000 people watching me talk about masturbation or talk about pornography, and it just sometimes I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe there's a video out there of and all these people are watching this, but that actually helped all these people who previously were not interested in church start watching our YouTube channel. And then we will link at the end of the channel a sermon. So they will watch the video, which is like 10 minutes or so, and then they will watch the sermon afterwards. And people start connecting online. They started joining us online for church. And so when the lockdown ended, when we could meet again, the church came back with more people. Like all these people that we didn't even know started showing up. And they would tell us, well, I started watching, asking for a friend. And then so I started watching your sermons and I thought, oh man, this is great. So I decided I wanted to come check out the church. And then they would get baptized. And so we met so many of these people. And so in a way, God worked all things good all things together work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And so we really saw that work out for us. And so we actually came back out of the lockdown with more people than we had. But it wasn't like we were master planners or anything. It was really just us sitting around the table. And then somebody came up with this idea and we started to just go, you know what, they just do this. They just make videos of talking about all these different subjects. And so what I learned from that was, don't be afraid to engage the questions that people actually ask. And I think sometimes the church, we're very, very good at answering questions that nobody's asking. And then the ones that people are asking, because we're afraid of how people might look at us, and so I think what I learned is just answer those questions. We didn't have the perfect answers for these questions, but I think people, they're not looking for perfect answers. They're just looking for a pastor to be honest about these issues and talking about them.
Yeah, definitely looking for you to be real in the moment, aren't they? So just you share with us a little bit. Obviously, during that time, your social presence grew on YouTube. What did that look like before and after? Just to give us a wee bit of insight there.
Well, before, so like 2019, we have probably 2,000-3,000 people subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then now it's about I think 80,000 people. And so so that's how we start. And then we started an online campus. So we actually started, we ship our staff around, and one of the staff became an online campus pastor. I called her one day and said, hey, I need you to become the online campus pastor. She's like, what is that? I said, I don't know. We'll figure it out. and so because we have all these people, they would tune in like on Sunday live to watch, and they would chat on the YouTube chat. And so we start building these teams, volunteer teams, that would call them up after each online broadcast to pray with them. And we were sending gifts. So we're doing all these. We did our first online baptism a couple of months ago, just baptizing people through Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And what we found out was because we're Chinese speaking, so there's Chinese people everywhere. So a lot of the people who are watching are actually not located in Taiwan. So they're in places like Malaysia, Singapore, even Europe, and all these Chinese speakers that would tune in and watch online church.
So it's good just to get that clarity. So when you're preaching and sharing, you're preaching primarily in Chinese, but also I think you do some English as well, don't you? But primarily your audience is to Chinese.
So we do 3 services on Sunday. So we broadcast 3 services out. So the first service I do, I would preach in English and have a interpreter on stage. And the interpreter would do simultaneous translation. So I would say something, she would say something, I would say something, she would say something. So that's our 9:30 service. And then at like 11:30 and at 2:00, it's just me preaching Chinese. It's the same sermon, but in Chinese. And so then at the end of after we broadcast them out, we take the video down. Then we just upload the sermon up, and we just put it up so we put up a bilingual one, and then pure in like just straightforward English Chinese sermon on YouTube.
No, it's so good. Just thinking about Taiwan and maybe the church scene there. For somebody who doesn't know, what does that look like? What does it look like? Kind of like coming out of lockdown. Is it thriving? Is it surviving? Yeah, just give us an idea of what the church scene looks like in Taiwan.
I think the churches in Taiwan are facing the same challenges that churches everywhere are facing. I think I've seen a lot of churches really thrive in the midst of the pandemic because they're able to pivot really fast into seizing some of the new opportunities. But I've also seen a lot of churches struggle. In fact, I actually know a few churches that actually had to close down because of the pandemic, and they never reopened back up. Um, and so I think COVID kind of just accelerated everything, right? I think if some churches were already not doing so well, then it kind of just ended the lifespan of that local church a little bit earlier. But so I think some churches are struggling. I think the ones who are really thriving are the ones who have pivoted fast. I think in this age that we live in, it's actually not about speed. It's not about doing something fast, but it's about being agile. It's about willing to let go of what you're used to. And I think that's a challenge for all of us, especially leaders, because we kind of, when we have a vision for something, we kind of stake our reputation and stake everything on it. We're like, this is what we need to do. We got to do this. And so it's hard for us to say then, well, actually, for this next season, we're not going to do that anymore. We got to pivot and shift to something else. And so I think it's more important to be agile rather than being fast. I think it's not just about get it done the fastest and the most effective way possible, but it's actually learning to ask the right questions. I think being in this pandemic, we need to be careful to not come up with answers so fast. I think we're still in this period where we still need to just ask questions about what's going on and what is the future of the church going to look like. And I don't think we should try to arrive at a conclusion too fast. And I think we should just, stay flexible. And if we can do that, which is really hard for me because I'm a planner. I like to plan things out. Like I really do. I'm like, when I watch Netflix, when people watch Netflix, they watch, whatever they want on whatever day they want. For me, it's different. If I watch it on Tuesday night, I will watch this particular show. If I watch it on Wednesday night, I will watch this particular show. So the way I watch Netflix is the way we would watch cable TV like 20 years ago, right? Because I like planning. I like everything to be in order. But so this whole pandemic has just kind of blown that out of the water. So I have to learn to be flexible. But I've learned when you're flexible, you see God do amazing things. And like the whole asking for a friend video that we did, that series that we did, what I learned is a lot of time God uses the things that you did not plan, that you did not foresee to bring you the biggest increase. And so if you can just be agile, be faithful, be persistent, just heading in the same direction, just going after God, I think it's going to work out at the end.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. And I think just coming through the podcast and picking up some of the things that you've been sharing, this idea of making others the hero of the story, that's really important, isn't it? Putting them first. And I think it sounds like really God got you to the right place at the right time, if I can use that phraseology, really to have an impact with so many people and into their world, really. I think you were at the right place at the right time as well.
Yeah.
And you were prepared to take a risk. And I think there's something in that for leaders as well.
Yeah.
About being agile, being willing to take a risk as well. Now, you mentioned when we were chatting previously about the sort of percentage of growth within Taiwan with the Christian faith. Can you just mention that a little bit? What does that look like today? What's the percentage of Christianity in Taiwan and how quickly has that grown?
Well, the latest stats out of Taiwan is that the nation is about 8 to 10%, depending on which study you're looking at, that's Christian. So now that might seem quite little, like 8%, 10%, but But considering for the longest time, that number was about 2 to 3% for about 150 years of Christianity coming into Taiwan. And it's really only in the last 20 to 30 years that that number has moved from that 2 to 3% to where we are right now. And so I think we're in this time when I think people are hungry, people are seeking the truth, people are flexible. And so I think, you know, I think there's so many people out there in Taiwan, wherever people are listening, I think it would be true in whichever city or nation they're in. There are always people who are ready to hear the gospel. You know, the parable of the sower, I think shows us that, you know, the majority, 75%, you know, the seed that falls on all these kind of soils, and it was this last soil that was good. And so only that 1 out of 4 soil is good. So maybe there's only 25% of people at any given time who would like to hear what you have to say about the gospel. But that's enough, because if you would just do that consistently, and faithfully, then you will get a harvest. So I think right now what we're seeing is the fact that many people over the years, leaders and pastors who have gone before me, have consistently, persistently just preached the gospel and just did the hard work of the ministry. So I'm here, and my generation were able to reap a reward that we have not, you know, we're reaping a reward that we didn't work for, that somebody else did. But at the same time, it's a reminder that we got to be sowing into our generation that we might not even see the reward of, but the next generation will. And so I think that's a beautiful picture of God's kingdom, because it's not just about us. It's not just about my generation. It's the generations that we're connected to, and what God is doing in the bigger picture of things.
No, that's just amazing. And again, you know, speaks into that whole thing around, you know, you put yourself in a ministry and you listen to a leader, and here now, you know, you're speaking about, you know, the generations before, and you're reaping a harvest of that. And I think that whole generation and legacy thing is so important. Like, who has been your greatest inspiration, and why have they been your greatest inspiration?
So I think it depends on which areas of my life, but in terms of ministry, one of the pastors that has influenced me the most early on in my life was the pastor I was working for when I was in seminary. So I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I know most people probably have never heard of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think Michael Todd from Transformation Church made the city famous. Before that, most people have not heard of Tulsa, Oklahoma. When I was there, definitely most people have not heard of the city. But when I was in the city, I was going to school, and I was working for a pastor, Pastor Greg, and he started a church that ministered to the homeless in downtown Tulsa. And so the church has about 100 people. The majority of them, 80% of them, are homeless. There's about 20 of them, 20% that have jobs, but the majority are homeless. And so I was working for him, and he taught me a lot about ministry. I remember every Sunday we would cook a meal for the homeless. So we would do church on Sundays, but before we would do church, we would cook breakfast for about 100 people, right? So these are homeless people coming in. They get a meal and they get a message. That's what they get. And so I was in charge of cooking the meal every Sunday. So I was working together with another friend. He used to be a chef in the U.S. Army, so he's used to cooking for a lot of people. So he taught me how to cook for 100 people, and because we're making breakfast every Sunday, so we would make scrambled eggs. Now, one time I was making these scrambled eggs, right? We have like hundreds of eggs. We're beating all the eggs. And it's tiring to beat 100 eggs at a time. I don't know if you ever beat like just even 5 eggs. It's hard. So try imagine with a spatula beating, close to 100 eggs at a time. My arm felt like it was going to fall off. So I was doing that one day, beating the eggs, right? The Pastor Greg, he walked in and he saw me beating eggs, and I was sweating, and he said this to me. He says, "Hey, Peter, most he says most homeless ministry, most ministry that minister to the homeless, when they make scrambled eggs for the homeless, they will buy these powder eggs. I don't know if you have those in the UK, but powder eggs are these, they're supposedly made from real eggs, but they're just powder, and you put them in hot water, and it makes it, it looks like scrambled egg, but it tastes like scrambled egg, but it's not really scrambled egg. And he says most homeless ministry would just use that. He says, but he says, we don't have a lot of money in this church, but we can afford real eggs. And so we're going to use real eggs because people are worth it. And that stuck with me. He says, because people are worth it. And that one sentence has really formed the how I do ministry. People are worth it. And so it was really through him and when I saw the heart that he would pour into these people, because these people, you love on them, and really they don't give you anything in return. They're not volunteering at church. They're not doing anything else for you. They're just showing up, but he really taught me how to love these people. And I think that one lesson has impacted me the most over all these years.
Brilliant. Well, Peter, it's been great to be chatting with you today. We've got one final question we love to ask all our guests, which is this. It is, what's the one question that no one's asking you that you wish they would? And what is the answer to that question?
Oh, that's a good question. As a pastor, I think people are always asking me what they should do. And I will wish people would stop asking me what they should do, because first of all, I don't know their situations. I don't want to give advices. I don't want to say do this and not knowing exactly what they're going through. But I wish people would ask me more about not what to do, but how to think. I think that's more important. I think Jesus really showed us this. I think people will always come to him with questions. And he really just gave a straightforward answer, because I think he realized the issue is not that people don't have the answer, it's people have been asking the wrong questions. And if you're asking the wrong questions, if you're not asking the right questions, if you're not asking the right questions, you'll never arrive at the right answers. And so he will always reframe the questions and then give an answer to it. And so he was changing the way people would ask questions and the way people would think. So I wish people would do that more. Interestingly, in Chinese, the word for knowledge in Chinese is 学问, and the phrase 学问 literally means learning how to ask a question. Okay. So the word for knowledge is not knowing something; it's learning how to ask a question. And I think there's some truth there, So I wish people would stop asking me what to do, because most of the time, I really don't know what they should do. And I don't want them to do something and then blame me afterwards if it didn't work out. But I wish they can just ask, hey, just teach me the way you think. And I think that would probably help all of us, if we can learn how to ask the right questions.
Definitely. A great answer there.
Yeah, an amazing answer. Peter, if people wanted to connect with you, what's the best way for them to kind of like follow you, follow what you're doing there in Taiwan?
Well, I think the best thing if you're on social media is not to follow me, because my Instagram is very boring. I don't have a team managing it. It's just me posting pictures of my kids and what I'm eating. So I don't think you'll find that interesting at all. But if people want to know what I'm doing, just go to our church Instagram. It's on Instagram. It's at thehope.co, thehope.co, or people can go on YouTube. Just type in The Hope. I think they'll find it. I think most of your listeners will be English speaking. We do have some English content there, but the majority of them are in Chinese. But if you're interested to see what God is doing in Asia, check us out.
Definitely, that's great.
Yeah, it's been so good, Peter, and want to say a big thank you for being with us on the Church Explained podcast. And just want to say to everyone who's listening, wherever you're consuming this content, if you can like, share, subscribe, however you're consuming this content, that makes a big difference to us here at the Church Explained podcast. But we're looking forward to the next time on the Church Explained podcast, and we can't wait to have you with us. We'll see you soon.